Hello, my name's Gam Ritu and welcome back to the Hibee Buzz podcast, proudly sponsored by G4 Claims, an accident management company specialising in providing support to those individuals in non-fault accidents. This week we're joined by a very special guest, a man who's made 177 appearances for Hibernian FC. He helped lead us back to the Scottish top flight and of course captained the Hibees to our first Scottish Cup win in 114 years, scoring that infamous goal that saw us lift the cup back in 2016. Joining us at HTC today is Hibs legend David Gray. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We obviously had you on the Hibee Buzz before. We did a longer podcast on your coaching journey and how that's unfolded so far. So we wanted to look back at your playing career with your testimonial around the corner. We wanted to kind of take you back down memory lane. So first of all, Edinburgh born and bred. Can you tell us a little bit about, your first memories in football?
First memories in football? I had my best mate lived across the street from me, and I had another two older cousins that were 5 and 6 years older than me, and any opportunity we had, we were out playing in the street, playing football all the time. That was what it was. Christmas times, birthdays, it was always get a ball, new strips, My United strips, whatever it might be, and that was basically anywhere I went, I always had a ball with me, that sort of thing. And then the first team I joined was Loanhead Miners. It was just a local team. My dad was a Loanhead, and that was the team I went and joined there. I think I was seven or eight, and I was there for a couple of years before moving on to what's now the wrong side of the city for a few years before moving down south.
Tell us a little bit about that switch then from Edinburgh to Manchester United. It's obviously a massive move. How did that come about?
Just from playing. Actually, I think I was about 12 or 13 when I first heard of some sort of interest. Well, I think my dad had first heard of some sort of interest from down south, which he never told me about. He never told me for a long time. And then I think it was, during school holidays, Easter holidays, I got the opportunity to go down on trial. And I think I was about 14 at the time when I actually managed to go down, 13, 14. And then always on school holidays and things like that. I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to keep going back. Really enjoyed it. And then when I got wind of the opportunity to go in full time, I was desperate to go and do that.
Yeah, was it a no-brainer? It's obviously a big decision to go down south, but for you, was that just like, that's what I want to do?
I think I made my mind up pretty quickly. That's what it was. It was difficult for a number of reasons. I think, 15, 16, leaving home, leaving all your mates, leaving your family. It was difficult to try and, even just like things like, I'll go back to even when I was on school holidays, like, your friends are away doing things and I was away working, well, not even working, but I'm going and playing football all the time. And at the time, you see it as like, are you missing out on anything? Because you're just young and naive and thinking about what your friends are doing. But then now that I'm in the position I am now, I think about how good an experience that was for me and how good it was, and how grateful I am for mum and dad to actually let me go, because I've got kids now, and imagine to let them go at 15 to go and live with a family that you've only met once or twice, to go and start my own life down there must have been a big decision for them as well, to allow me to go and do that, and it's one I've always been very grateful for. But as soon as I got the opportunity with the facilities and the opportunity to go and play for, at the time, one of the biggest clubs in the world and still are, I knew pretty quickly that's what I wanted to go and do.
How does it work then in terms of when you go down at a very young age? You have to take you go into digs and that, and how was that kind of initial process of setting into life in Manchester?
Yeah, so I went into digs. I actually moved into the house where, when I was on trial, I went to the house where Darren Fletcher was living, so he was in digs with family, Marion and John. I still keep in touch with now. Were a big part of my life from sort of 15, 16 till I think I moved out at about 18. So big part of my life. I moved in with another couple of players, Darren Gibson and Kyle Moran, who I still keep in contact with as well. So it was very much, we gave you the opportunity. Marion taught me to cook, a lot of things like that, like even just ironing and washing and wee things. So as much as it was great that we had someone there who was able to look after us, they were also very good at making you understand what it's actually, you can't have your mum doing everything for you. So it was really good from that point of view as well.
Yeah, and in terms of from the footballing side of things, was it obviously helped that you'd gone down on trial a few times, so got to know a few of the lads, but was it daunting your first kind of few days, few weeks at United, or did you settle in quite quickly?
I think I settled quite quick. There's obviously times when you do get homesick. I think I definitely was at times, but I was quickly reminded that the guys I was with were in the exact same boat as me. I think Darren and Kyle were both Irish lads that were over, and I was lucky enough that Darren Fletcher was there, who always kept an eye on us as well. He would take us to cinema sometimes, take us to Trafford Centre. Once he moved out, he always sort of kept an eye on us and looked after us. So, no, very lucky to have the opportunity I was given, and I think at that age as well, you're just delighted to be doing what I was doing. I was spending as many hours as I could at the training ground, learning and working as hard as I could, and then just enjoying being 16-year-old, and hopefully the world at your feet at that time. That's what you think about, don't you?
And then, well, it's funny you mentioned Darren Fletcher, because an interview just came out that he did ahead of your testimonial, and he mentioned that although he was, I think, 4 years older than you, he kind of, you grew up in kind of similar areas, and he kind of had like a connection towards you, because obviously the Scottish connection, and he said he kind of helped look after you a little bit. How important was having like a senior figure like that to you when you're at United? Very
much so. I think it probably was a bit of a comfort blanket to my mum and dad as well, especially when I was younger, 15, going down. As I say, he was still living in the house that I was staying in, so it was great to have that. And he came from the same area as me. He grew up in sort of Mayfield, Dalkeith, and I'm just a mile or two along the road. So, as I say, very similar backgrounds. And then ultimately for me, it was great to go and see him do so well in the first team, and a bit of an inspiration for me to try and work towards.
Yeah, definitely. When you moved there, am I right in thinking you were a winger, and then they kind of transitioned you into a right back? Tell us a little bit about that. Or is that right?
No, it's clear. We're right. I went down as sort of winger stroke striker, more of a winger type. And then, if I'm being really honest, I don't think I was ever tricky enough to be a winger at that sort of level, especially. I think I went over to play a bounce game with some of the fringe first team players that maybe hadn't been playing, and a few reserve players, and needed a right back to play in the game. And I think just so happened that I got put there one day, and then I think as well I probably got more yellow cards for smashing people playing up front, rather than recognising my defensive side to the game was probably better than I was going forward. So, and I was able to attack from deeper the way they played as well, which probably suited me, not being as tricky, but more sort of running power. So they seen me as that was sort of position they wanted me to try me in, and I tried it a few times, and I really enjoyed it. And ever since then, I've never played anywhere else really.
What's it like being at academy like United, and such a huge club, and especially back then doing so well? There's huge players, characters, egos, just in and around the place. What's that like to kind of be a part of, thinking back?
I think initially you're always, it's daunting, to be fair. I think these are people that I've watched on the TV and like superstars of the game, and then when you take the manager into that as well, so that was Ferguson. I think that was the first time in my life I'd ever been like starstruck. The first time I met him, and every time I did meet him ever since then, it was always, he put the fear into you at times, but it was always great. He probably had a bit of a soft spot for me because I was Scottish, which definitely helped. But I think when you then put it all together, it just quickly reminds you exactly where you are and the challenge you have in front of you as a young boy, but also the opportunity you've got.
What was he like to play under and to play for? Because everyone calls him the boss, like one of the best managers, if not the best manager ever. What was that like to play in a game when you did make your debut, for example, to play under him?
Obviously, well, it being my first game, I was nervous, very, very nervous. He made me feel quite at ease and spoke to me before it at length, but I was also quite lucky that there was, I think the back four that day, Wes Brown played, Michael Silvestri and Gabriel Heinze was the back four, so it was quite an experienced back four, and I had quite a bit of experience round about me, so I was able to lean on that. But the way the game went, he wasn't too happy at half time. I actually got away with it. I think it's because I was younger, but the other three got a bit of a roasting for him, so I was sitting there quietly, keeping my head down in the corner and just keeping myself to myself. Yeah,
people always talk about Fergie's kind of standards, and yourself as a coach, I've heard you talk about standards need to be high enough, people need to be good enough. Do you think that growing up under Fergie and that's kind of ingrained into you, that the high standards that Manchester United players set themselves, or the manager sets them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that run right through the club at that time. I'm sure it will do now. One of the biggest clubs. I think at that time especially, they were renowned as one of the best academies, so you're getting the pool of probably the best talented players all over the country at that time, and all over the world now. So I remember it was always really such a big thing to talk about professionalism and standards every single day, and you'd be amazed at the ones that usually find the most talented, ones that don't put it all together are the ones that are not there in 2-3 years time down the line. It's the ones that really understand what it takes to be a professional first and foremost, and work as hard as they can to get, because everyone's got that opportunity at 16. It's about who can then prolong that from there. And I think there's no coincidence that even if you don't quite make it at Manchester United, there's a lot of players, especially not just at my age group, but all the age groups coming all the way through have made a good career out of the game, which is the most important thing.
During your time then, you had a couple of loan spells as well, out in Belgium at Antwerp, in England as well with Crewe and Plymouth and stuff. How did they come about, and was that a case of you just wanted to get more senior minutes in your legs, or how did that, of all of those three teams, how did that all kind of come?
I think I was at that point where you played under 18s football and then a few games in the reserves, and I think that was the next step for me. It wasn't as if I was knocking on the door for the first team at that point, but an opportunity came up. We were using Antwerp as a sort of feeder club at the time, and I got the opportunity to go over there with 3 other players. It was Danny Simpson had just came back, so I was able to go out when he came back. Ryan Shawcross went over because Johnny Evans had just came back, and I think Fraser Campbell and Darren Gibson were staying there for the rest of the season. So it was like the second half of the season for me, just to go on loan, which was a brilliant opportunity. But unfortunately, my second game I done my cruciate in the game, so obviously that got cut short. I had to come back and then rehab for that, and then got myself back fit. But at that point, and then I'd obviously missed 6, 7, 8 months in my career. I had to then start going again, and then that was when the opportunity to go back out on loan came up, and I went down to Plymouth, and I had 2 really good spells down there where I really enjoyed it. A couple of injuries here and there again, that was a big part of my, I never really got a good run at it, but just different reasons, different injuries along the way, which is all part and parcel of football, obviously, and but I really enjoyed my time going out on loan.
Then 2010, you made the decision to leave United. When I'm right in thinking you had the option to stay. Can you talk about the decision to join Preston North End on a permanent basis? Yeah,
I think I was at that point where I'd experienced going out and playing at Plymouth in the Championship and really enjoyed it. And I was at that point where I knew that I still could have stayed for another year, but I wasn't any closer to the first team, and they'd signed a few players in that position, and I knew I wasn't going to break through at Manchester United. An opportunity came to go to Preston, which is still in the Championship, still in the same area I was living in, still in the Manchester area. And it was just a very good opportunity for me, and I knew at that point it's something I wanted to go and do. And it was Darren Ferguson who was the manager as well. Had a good chat with him, and he was keen to take me there. So I knew pretty quickly that was the right move for me at that time, and then that was when I moved on to there.
Was it a sad time in terms of leaving United, or is it more excitement at an opportunity to play more regular football, or is it kind of a bit of both?
Yeah, no, I think it probably is a little bit of both. I think everything that I'd learned and done at Manchester United was preparing me for football anyway, for whether that be at Manchester United or at another club. And if I can't make it at Manchester United, it's about trying to play at the highest level you possibly can, and that was the opportunity that was presented to me, and I was really grateful for that, to go and play in the Championship. And I was at that age where I needed to be playing first team football and get my career back on track. Obviously a few injuries I'd had at that point that I needed to go and get games because I hadn't had enough at that point in my career.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that the injuries, I know you had quite a few probably around that spell in your career. How difficult were those setbacks, and how much kind of mental strength you need to kind of push through them and make sure that you come back and come back firing?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a massive challenge. I think the flip side to that is I was very lucky that I picked up some big serious injuries, but at a place like Man United where you've got the best facilities, it definitely helps. So I was very fortunate for that. Fantastic facilities, swimming pool every day that you can use, top physios, and the best possible rehab programs you can get. So I was lucky that it happened to me at that stage in my career. From that point of view, that I was able to then push through that and try and get back. It's very difficult when people around about you are progressing and moving on, and I was at that age where I needed to be playing, and it definitely hindered me a little bit, of course, but every single time my full focus was just desperation to try and get back on the pitch as soon as I can and try and get back to the best possible level I could get to, and try to focus on things and parts of my game that, so for example, if you're not able to run, am I able to get stronger upper body wise, and I was at that age where I was able to sort of change my body shape a little bit and try and focus on the areas that I could focus on less so when I'm playing.
During that time then, I think you're at 5 different clubs in the space of 5 years, whether that be on loan or permanently. As a player, what's that like to be moving around and having to quickly adapt to new teams, new teammates, new situations surrounding managers? How difficult is that as a player to kind of adapt to?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it probably depends on the dressing room you go into. I think I was lucky that all the dressing rooms I've actually been involved in and played in, they were all really good ones. I didn't ever feel that I had shared the dressing room with a real bad bunch of boys or anything like that. So that made it quite easy. And I think every single decision I've ever made to go anywhere has always been, and at that time, what I believed was the right one. So you're going there full of excitement, ready because you feel that's the next step in your career where you want to ultimately play at the highest level you can. And if you feel that's the right step for you at that time to then get to where you need to get to, then I always try to make the decisions. And I'm a massive believer that I think everything happens for a reason. I think if it wasn't for that injury in Antwerp, what would have happened? I don't ever think that way. You know what I mean? I always just think that was meant to be. So I had to change my mindset and focus on something else, which was that was actually the time when I came back and bought my first house. So that was the next step in my life. So I think I massively believe that everything happens for a reason, and everything was shaped and meant to go that way. It's just about working as hard as you possibly can and having no excuses at the end of it.
You mentioned everything happened for a reason then. The next step was the move to Hibs. Became Alan Stubbs' first signing for the club. Can you tell us a bit about how that move came about and how important it was to kind of move back home for you?
It was important at the time because I just had my youngest Ivy had just been born. We were living in North London, so I'd left Stevenage just prior to that. And Hayley, I think she'd be first to admit, she struggled a little bit with living on her own when I'm at work all the time and then coming back, and probably missed home a little bit and missed the child support that you get. So when I got an opportunity to come back up the road, I know Hayley was dead keen to try and get back up for obvious reasons. She's a self-employed hairdresser, all her clients were back up here as well. So I think it made a lot of sense from that point of view. And I also knew coming back up what I was signing up for, which was obviously the opportunity to get my career back on track at a fantastic club in a city that I know very well. And I've went from being all over England at times to being half an hour away from mum and dad and the rest of my family again. So I knew that if I could get the family life all settled again, that I could fully focus on the football again and try to kickstart my career again. And it's turned out to be the greatest decision I ever made from a footballing point of view.
What were those initial conversations with Stubbs like then? Did you kind of talk a lot about family and part of that was part of the reason why you moved, or was it also about what his vision was for the club and how important you would be going forward?
No, I think it was, as I say, the opportunity. So when I was grateful for the opportunity to start with, I think it was also a massive transition period when the club had just been relegated. The opportunity, albeit to go and play for Hibs in the Championship, if you would say that sounds like not a great opportunity, but Rangers were in the Championship, Hearts were in the Championship at the time, and I'm pretty sure that the Championship that year was more exciting than the games in the SPFL. So it was a really good time. I think I enjoyed playing in the big games like the derbies and going to Ibrox and things like that. It was you get when you're down south, you get caught up in playing Saturday, Tuesday, but when you come back up, it's what I've been used to be watching when I was young and everything, and it was brilliant to be part of that. And mum and dad come to all the games, and it was just the right fit at the right time. And as I say, it was a rebuilding job, so it was an opportunity for us to really put our own stamp on it. And I think with the staff at the time, so obviously the manager, so Stubbsy, Taff and John Doolan were a big part of that from a coaching point of view. And then you're George Craig and Leanne that were rebuilding it from behind the scenes, and it just felt like a real close togetherness in that group at that time.
You mentioned the big games. I'll take you back to the 29th of September 2014, 3-1 win at Ibrox, and you scored your first professional goal 8 years after making your debut. Was that a release?
If I'm being honest, I knew you were going to say that. I would say no, purely because I think it's just the way it fell in certain games. Like I never ever used to, so when I was down south, I was always back for set pieces, for example. So that's my excuse for that one. And I was always more of like, again, some of the teams that I played in, coming back to play for Hibs, the way we wanted to play at Hibs, the fullbacks were very attack-minded, so it really suited me. I enjoyed getting forward, and I also believe it was the fittest I've ever been in my career as well. You know, like when I came back up, that was as good as I felt, especially that first season. I never really had any knocks or injuries really, apart from the back end of the season, so I was able to get a good run at it, and felt fit enough and strong enough to get them down all day, which was great. And then, as you say, just so when I scored, I think it was, I'm going to put it down to the change of system rather than just being hopeless for 8 years.
I wasn't getting that.
I got the role, the freedom to run forward.
Was it Stubbsy then that changed? You're saying that when you're down south, you didn't go up for set pieces. Did that change when you came up to Hibs? Did he want you to go up, or was it actually just more kind of going up and down it as part of the system?
No, but everything probably. Just a different way of playing. I think we played a diamond a lot. So when you play a diamond, obviously your fullbacks become important from width point of view. So I was able to get forward a lot, had a licence to go and do that, especially playing in that shape. Whereas, and then from a set piece point of view, I was always up for set pieces. I don't know if that's just what I've seen in training or whatever. And at the time, you know, it's like down south, there's loads of, usually your fullbacks would be the ones that stay back. I would be one of the smaller ones, and so that would always be the way it was. But no, it's just the way it panned out, really.
The end of that first season, you were appointed captain for the 2015-16 season. First of all, how proud a moment was that for you?
It was. I think I remember my very first game actually when I was given the armband was against Dumbarton at home. Liam Craig was the captain at the time, and he'd be injured or suspended. He was probably suspended for shouting at the referee or something. Never got booked for a tackle in his life, been suspended all his life. So when I got that, I remember that night, and I remember the man Stubbsy pulling me in and just saying, "Listen, I'm going to make you captain for today." And I'd only just been at the club for a couple of months. It wasn't as if, you know, there was other people in the dressing room like Paul and Louis who had been at the club for a long time that I thought would be the obvious choice. So to be given that responsibility and opportunity, I was obviously very grateful for. Very proud and very humbled to be given the opportunity, to be honest. And then ever since then, it probably, well, it made me the sort of sort of vice captain. And then that's when the start of the next season, Liam left. So it was the manager then decided to give me the armband, and I was delighted with it.
Let's talk about the 15-16 season then. Well, it turned out to be an absolute whirlwind. How would you sum that season up? Imagine a mixture of heartbreak, elation, pure joy, a bit of everything.
Absolutely. I think at one stage we were on for the treble at one point. It was unbelievable. No, I think the biggest frustrating thing with that, the whole season, was I still think we were the best team. I think we were very good. I thought that group of players was good enough to go and play at the top end and compete at the top end in the Premier League at the time, which we showed in the cup runs because we got to both cup finals. And then I think when you talk about the highs, so getting to the first cup final against Ross County, you're going in there going, right, great opportunity, and then on reflection, we'll be the better team in the game probably, but lost the game. So then you're sitting going, well, that's not great. And then straight off the back of the game, we actually had Inverness away. I think it might have been on the Tuesday or the Wednesday after the cup final was the second leg, because for the Scottish Cup. Yeah, it was the second leg. So even if it was very much an opportunity, as soon as that was done, right, opportunity to try and get back to Hampden again. So that was all the motivation we needed for that one. So that was great. We went up there and managed to get a positive result. And then when I then think about getting to the final, even the semi-final, when you think about the semi-final, how that went, with Jason Cummins dinking the penalty over the bar, and Conrad having one of the best goalkeeping displays I've ever seen from a Hibs goalkeeper, was fantastic on the day. And it just seemed like it was falling into place from that point of view. Then even now on reflection, when I think about that whole Scottish Cup run, when you think about everything that went on, like 2-0 down at Tynecastle, get back to 2-2, then Tomo clears it off the line, and then so you get through that one, you go to the second leg and win, and then just everything that went our way in that run, you know, you start to think about, like, this, could it be? But the whole time, the full focus for the whole season was we need to get out of the Championship. That was the ultimate goal, and we had to get out of the Championship. Like, Hibs couldn't do another year in the Championship, or it would be a massive failure in our eyes, and that's exactly how we treated it. So to lose to Falkirk on the Friday night in the playoff was probably the lowest I think I've ever felt. Career-wise, it was just horrible for everybody involved, I think. And then
How from sorry to interrupt. To go from that feeling, how do you then, with the Scottish Cup just being a matter of weeks away, how do you manage to lift the team as captain ahead of such a massive game and a chance that can literally turn your season around in one game?
I think we went from, I think if you ask everyone involved, I genuinely came in on the Monday fully believing that we were going to win. And I think it might be the mindset of changing from wanting to win to needing to win. I think that might be, especially in my head, the way I was going into the game. If we hadn't won the Cup that year, it'd have been such a nearly season. And there was that term, Hibs, that kept floating around. And it wasn't something that was ever, I got asked about it quite a bit, and I know a lot of the players did, but it wasn't something we ever talked about. I think we just genuinely felt to a man then going into the game against Rangers that we could beat them. I thought we felt, and then when you look at the teams on paper now, I still believe we had a better team. And if we turned up and played as well as we could, that we were good enough to go and win the game. And I think that's coming in on the Monday, really felt that way, that we're preparing for obviously the biggest game of the season, without doubt, because that was our last opportunity to try and get a bit of silverware for what would have been such a nearly season, as I've just said there. So I think that was all the motivation we needed. I'll never forget the feeling lying on the pitch at Hampden, having lost to Ross County, the feeling sitting on the Friday night after Falkirk, and I was desperate to do anything I possibly could to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. And I really got a sense of it on the Monday coming in, that everybody was in the same boat, and we had one opportunity to try and salvage the season. And it would have, I think if you'd asked any Hibs supporter at the start of the season, would they have took the Scottish Cup over promotion, I think a lot of them would have said yes, just to try and get rid of that. But as players, we were greedy and we wanted both, obviously. So no, it turned out to be obviously the greatest moment in my career, and I've always said this before, but I need to be careful how I word it, but one of the best moments in my life, to be honest. So.
Absolutely. You mentioned the run to the final. Wraith, Hearts and Inverness both went to replays. Dundee United needed extra time and then penalties. It was only fitting, really, that the final was going to be just as dramatic. What was that? What were those 90 odd minutes like to play in?
Actually, I don't think I touched the ball for the first 5-6 minutes. The ball was just rolling about everywhere, and I was like, any chance of getting a touch here? I think my first touch was a tackle. I just kicked it and booted it. So, I'm no surprise there, to be honest, first touch of the tackle. But we started obviously really well, and obviously Stokesy on the day was as good as I've ever seen him. He was unplayable on the day. And to a man, I thought we were very good. I thought we were unlucky to be only 1-0 up at half-time, 1-1 at half-time. Obviously went 1-0 up there and pegged us back when Kenny Minnell scored. So to be sitting at 1-1, going in at half-time, having felt like we've really dominated the game, was a bit, I don't know, because then the conversation at half-time then was, listen, just keep going, trust it, keep doing what we're doing and we'll go and win the game. And then to find yourself 2-1 down, that was a bit of a, I wouldn't say shock, because I still felt we were heavily in the game. I felt they did have a little spell when they did score, so it wasn't completely against the run of play, but I felt for the next 5-10 minutes it went really flat. And I think that probably was a quick reminder of what we just experienced in the whole season. So it's just like, well, here we go again.
Yeah, having done so well, just to then
say, go, here we go. But then that quickly changed. I don't know what it was, whether it be McGinn smashing into a tackle or something happened. We just got a little bit of a leg up again, and it felt then that as soon as we got the second goal to go to 2-2, Stokesy scores for the corner. At that point, even just before that point, but especially from that point on, I felt that there was only going to be 1-1 at that point. I felt fitter than them, stronger than them at that time, and it felt like we were on the front foot and had all the momentum going forward. And if we didn't score when we did, I fully believe that we'd have went on to do it in extra time.
Let's talk about that iconic goal then. Get a corner in the 92nd minute. Henderson goes over to take it. What do you remember from watching him go over to take the ball, and then from the moment it left his boot?
I remember I was breathing heavily at that point. I was going to say something else, but I was absolutely knackered, because we'd actually, I think we'd just done, I had done a bit of pressing just before it in the 91st minute, pressing, won the ball back, won a throw in the halfway, threw it quickly, so we broke away quickly. And then I remember thinking, can you get up for this corner here? But I do vividly remember walking up, taking our time, setting it up, because we had talked about, I know it's easy to say now in reflection, but we had talked about how big an opportunity set pieces were. We felt we were a big opportunity for us to score. Rangers had lost a lot of goals, and we had boys that were willing to go and put their head on it. So, especially with Hendo coming on with his delivery, we'd obviously just scored from a corner previously. And I remember going up, and we always discussed where we were going to run, like between us, the four of us, where we were going to go. And Nicholas Gunnarsson says, I'll go one. I said, I'm going to go two. And as soon as the ball left his foot, I knew I was getting it. It seemed to take quite a bit of time to come in, but I knew at that point I was going to get it. And actually, when I watch it back, I actually think they should defend it better. I don't think I should get it. I think the defender should clear it. But it was weird. I just felt like at that time I was going to get my head on it. And then as soon as I do get my head on it, I knew I had a good enough contact on it that I'd scored. And then from there, I think I'd done about 6 celebrations in one watching it back. At that time, I can't really remember. I just ran away. And then the next thing I vividly remember was just Stephen McLean, the referee, apologising to me and saying, I need to book you.
Oh, really? Is that what he said?
And he said, I'm really sorry, David, but you know the rules, I need to book you. And I was like, no problem.
So is that whatever then, 60 seconds from when the ball left your head, is it just kind of, can you even remember what was going on, or is it just pure elation?
Yeah, pretty much. I know it probably sounds a bit corny and cliche to say that, but I genuinely, I think you can even see it. I don't really know what I'm doing at that moment. I just run, just keep running, and then I realise, I remember looking at the sort of advertising board that was in front of me, thinking I'm not getting over that, so I just kept running. And then there was a gap in the corner. I was like a horse that just ran out of the stable. There's a gap, and I just kept running. And then as I was running, I ended up looking at somebody in the crowd and just ran right to them. I don't know why. No reason. Wasn't as if I'd ever thought that was ever going to happen, or what I would do if I ever scored. As I say, I hadn't scored a goal before I came here, so I've never ever went into a game thinking, see if I scored today, I'm going to do this. So I've never ever thought that for sure. So that was, as you can see, pretty safe to say, off the cuff, and just, as I say, the greatest moment in my footballing career, and if not my life.
What were the next, from when the referee McLean blew the whistle at full time, what were the next 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 24 hours, 40 hours like? I imagine it would have been some celebrations.
Yeah, I think the next 2 minutes, I never touched the ball again in the game. I think the ball once came down my side, and I remember willing it just to say, please go round the other way, just go back the other way. And eventually went back to Barry Mackay, and I think he tried to switch it and it went out. And I knew as soon as he kicked that, I knew it was going out. I knew he'd overhit it straight away. I thought, that's going out, go out. And it went out. And at that point, I remember walking back up and squeezing back up to the halfway line and just looking at Daz thinking, I've done this here, I've done this. And then, lo and behold, the next 30 seconds later, the whistle had went, and that was it. And then obviously the pandemonium that happens on the pitch after it and everything else, it was just the start of unbelievable enjoyment from the Hibs fans. It's something that they've obviously been waiting for such a long time. So to see it, to be involved in it, to be lucky enough to play a big role in it, I'll be forever grateful, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll touch upon the testimonial in just a bit, but you went on. It wasn't just that goal and that moment that you'll be remembered for. At Hibs, the next season was an equally important season to get back up into the Premiership, and you scored on the 3-0 win against Queen of the South to clinch the Championship title. How was it? How important was that for yourself, but also for the team, to make sure that we got back up to the Premiership the year after winning the Scottish Cup?
Yeah, I think that was. So as I say, it masked over the fact that we'd failed what we tried to do, winning the Scottish Cup. So winning the Scottish Cup definitely masked over the fact that we'd failed, because the objective at the start of the season was to get promoted back to Championship and have a good run in the Cup, try to win a Cup. So then going in the next again year was like, we must get promoted again. And then we had the opportunity to play in Europe as well, which was great. But that was the full focus again. We kept a good part of the squad together. It had been together for a few years now, and then obviously added to that in a good way. And I know as captain, I was very lucky that there was so many good pros, such a good dressing room. There was a real good balance with class clowns in terms of Jason and Boyley. At times, you know, you need them sort of characters in the dressing room when back of a defeat. Jason and Boyley were still always going to mess about and always lighten the mood, let's just say. And then you've got the top professionals like Daz, Paul and Louis that are always there and always set the standard every single day. And then you've always got the mix in between with boys trying to come into the club and make a name for themselves, like young players coming through. And I think we had a real good balance at the time. So going into the Championship that year, I think obviously the new manager as well, Neil Lennon came in. So we fully knew what was in front of us, and I think at that going into that season, obviously Rangers weren't in the league anymore, so it was about us, and we were a big scalp in the league, so there was certain games where we probably struggled a little bit with teams coming and sitting in, but we had to find a way to win games. And then I think on the whole it was a successful season because we got promoted at the end of it, so it was a little bit of relief, but it was something that I was just delighted on the last game. To be fair, Daz had scored 2, so he'd be all over thinking that he's unbelievable when that popped up at the end, so he gave him a bit of stick at the end to say, "Oh, shock, you turned up at the end, you ruined the party." So nobody's ever mentioned the fact that Daz scored 2 in that game. I was like, David Gray scores a winner at the end. Lucky Daz. But no, it was I remember that game well for that reason. Daz was on a hat-trick, I remember it, and then we scored from a set piece at the end, so no, I don't think I'd ever live that one down McGregor with a hat-trick, so I'm delighted it was me and not him for once.
Look at you've said it's the best, one of the best moments in your life, that goal in the Scottish Cup final. But looking back and reflecting on your playing career, then how grateful are you that you did make the decision to come back to Edinburgh, to come back to Hibs, and would you say that Hibs has been the highlight of your playing career, or is it, as you said, everything happens for a reason and you enjoyed it all?
No, 1,000,000%. It's been, as I said earlier, the greatest decision I made was to come back up the road. I had opportunities to stay down south, and it would have been easy for me to be selfish and say, no, I want to stay down south because it's so hard to get down there in the first place. But at the time, as I say, it was just right for me and my family to come back. And as I say, it's the best decision I've ever made. I'm very grateful and lucky that, yes, I was the one that was fortunate enough to score the goal, but the team I had around me at that time, and the team from the minute I signed for the club that was being built, I've been lucky enough to play with some fantastic players, some great people, some great professionals, and as I say, the club has just went forward all the time, and it's at that point now where you even look at it now, we're looking to build and go forward all the time, so it's a real good place to be, and as I say, I'm just so lucky for the opportunity I've had.
Sorry, this interview you mentioned a few players. You mentioned Darren Fletcher, Darren Gibson, Darren McGregor, Conrad Logan, for example. All of them are coming back to Easter Road this weekend to play in the testimonial, in your testimonial. How much are you looking forward to that occasion?
You're using the word play. I think for them, possibly, I think it'll be a case of being on the pitch for me, I would imagine. No, I'm looking forward to it for different reasons. I think great to catch up with some people I've not seen for a very long time, which is great. I think the whole thing about a testimonial is I don't like the attention, if I'm being really honest, so it's not something I'm very comfortable with, but at the same time very, very appreciative and humbled and honoured to be given a testimonial, and for all that, I just like to thank every single player I've ever played with, every staff member I've ever worked with, all the managers I've played under, and more importantly all the fans that for the minute I've been at the club, they've been so supportive through the highs and the lows. Followed us absolutely everywhere, and I appreciate at the moment, especially with what's going on in football and in the world, it's a very expensive time to be a Hibs supporter, so I'm very supportive and not surprised at all by the support that all the things I've had so far, and I'm very grateful for everyone and all the hard work that goes on around about me.
Very well said, Dave. Just finally then, who's going to win on Sunday?
Oh, can't get beat, that's for sure. Never going to, absolutely. It'd be good actually. I think I've spoke to a couple of the boys from down south as well, and they're saying they're not coming up here just to make up the numbers, so that it could be good. I'd imagine it to be quite fiery, which is good. I'm looking forward to it for that point of view, that's for sure.
Definitely. Well, best of luck with the testimonial on Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us and for sharing your experience. A true inspiration for all the Hibs fans out there. Love hearing your story. So yeah, top man Dave, thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Cheers.